Okay, welcome back. So do we have any questions from the audiences about our AI and DeSci section? Okay, let's pass the mic to you.
Hi, great talks. My question is towards Queenie. So you talked about personalized medicine with the data. So I'm wondering what's your considerations with the FDA in terms of regulatory?
What is my...
So, you have the whole foundation model, right?
Right.
And so with, I guess, all the data collected, you want to make personalized medicine. What's your consideration for the FDA regulatory aspect of that?
Yeah, so on that note, I dealt indirectly with FDA on my previous company. So I have to say that I don't think we're going anywhere with the current infrastructure that's being designed in the FDAs and also around the world, all the regulations, including in Europe and also in China. And by the way, Korea, Japan, and Singapore, they usually follow the FDAs or the EMA, I believe, in Europe. I don't think it's getting anywhere if we're talking about personalized medicine, because this is just not a model that they would prefer, because it's taking a lot more new approach for doing research. Just you think about that, for phase 1 to phase 3, from safety, efficacy, and then making sure that it's valuable. Every single part of it takes at least 10 people to over 1,000 people, and there's no way you can do that in a personalized medicine world. So, and therefore, I don't see a hope in that. But I do think that maybe there are new setup that is building out, start from ground up, that could potentially make it possible. I think Dubai has some initiatives, Saudi Arabia has some initiatives. I know that some small countries that want to work with what they call the pop-up country, whatever you like to call it, want to have initiative, but I don't know. I cannot predict that part. I just think that DeSci in general have the ability to build something from the ground up. And I think that is, we have to build it. And that's why I asked the previous question about, okay, what do you think about monetization? The second question I asked is exactly that. What about the policy? I think we also need to build it from ground up. And there should be a DAO on that.
Thank you.
Hi, great talks. My question is more the data source from you guys. I think Fiona, in the end, really presented a perfect case where you have to really go out there and collect your own data. And so I want all of you to share what's your thought on the best case scenario about where your data source will be. Are you expecting the consumers to be collecting all of their integrated personal health history and then upload to your website? Or are you planning to build a new platform to collect data?
That's a great question. So we have, in our business model, we have 3 different data sources. The first one is the highest quality, that's usually coming from the hospital. But because these are centralized institutions and the doctors are normally very busy, the speed and the quantity is usually very low. But with the consumer's progressive organic data input, that's very fast, but usually the data itself has a lot of noise. When we are training the model, we need to clean maybe more than 50% of them. But at the same time, consumers, they are also the first person that's going to interact with the product. So from the collection from consumer, we try to make it as clear as possible how we're going to use the data, how we're getting their consents in the front end, but at the same time ask them about their day-to-day basic information as well, because that provides the continuous data that usually medical institutions cannot achieve. But beyond that, we actually have the API licensing to companies. So some of the companies are also willing to share their data that's generated from their consumer base with us, so it can provide a progressive data income, progressive data source as well. But most of the time, big pharma company, they want to privatize their servers and data sets. So that's something we need to kind of negotiate for a bit as well. And I think DeSci also provides this amazing incentive mechanism that we can have certain leverage point to persuade big companies to share their data for future drug discovery and stuff.
So I'll use the mental model I was showing during my slides of coordination, scalability, heterogeneity. And I think we can think through three lenses in that sense. So let's start with scale, right, which is you want both top-down and bottom-up. So bottom-up would be more like variables, lifestyle reporting, journaling, and so on. That's very important data source, but then also a lot of interesting data sets are logged in silos by Epic, for example. So we also need to get them out one way or the other. And so that's also scale problem. And so to a certain degree, heterogeneity, where think about things like rare diseases, for instance, where people have these really unique conditions and there's not much data. So you want to figure out how we can connect these kind of people and get their data sets at a single place to improve care. And to me, coordination is going to be the most interesting puzzle here. And what I mean by that is, let's say even if magically we put all this data together, okay, a question is how are we going to use them? They speak almost different languages. And this is where like recent advancements in AI are really going to shine. So if we use the analogy of language, think of like one data set is speaking English, another is speaking Mandarin, another is speaking in Portuguese, and so on. But because of AI, you can do the translation, and you can make this really contextual. So for example, what Winnie was mentioning around foundation models, like they're taking different data sets and understanding them. A good example would be when you use ChatGPT and you upload your images and also ask some text around it, it has this understanding of how this image and text translate between each other. And I think that piece of puzzle is going to be very important if we want to make sure that we are not just increasing the amount of data set, but actually we are creating this nice feedback loop between as we enter more points, it gets better. And one thing I would say, like we might want to take some inspiration from advertisement industry. When it comes to coordinating and passing data around, they are doing really an amazing job. You could argue there is some ethical issues with that, but as far as infrastructure is concerned, they're amazing at tracking, they're amazing at creating this chain where things are coming from, how to identify users and so on. Lots of privacy issues, but also at the same time, these things can be done privately. So if we really build like good infrastructure and get incentives right, I think these problems will become easier to solve.
I think Fiona and Abhishek already touched on bottom-up and top-down approach. I will take a different angle to answer the question. I think for us to be able to collect a lot of data, by the way, the 2.5 million data sets, you'll be surprised. Guess how long does it take for the general public to gather that data sets? Take a guess.
I know it's very long, but I have to say most of your data set probably is generated using NIH funding and it's actually deposited on the government-backed database.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, you are still using most of the public available databases, which other companies also have access to, which Google is also trying to use.
Yeah.
So like the competition between you and the bigger
Yep.
company is really big, right?
Well, so that's the thing, right? Just to adjust the question first. It's 18 years. 18 years for the 2.5 million biological data. But do you know how much data sets does Apple have? It's like in the US, I think the number is 1/3 of the people who use Apple has wearable devices like Apple Watch. That basically means that that's already over like what 50 million. Oh, actually, 50 million people around. So there are already a lot of data, but this is just on wearables, right? So you're right, but to answer your question, yes, it's a lot of competition, but I think we are taking a different approach, and I think that's one of the things that's good about startup, is that startup has the ability to create from ground up. And for Google to do anything, I think they take a longer route. And I do like the approach that Fiona and also Ian have taken, is doing it from like bottom up, because there are a lot of data that doesn't exist yet, right? From the hair data, and wearables are not connected. So I think that they're solving a different problem, a different approach. But the questions that the one thing that I want to address in particular is that when we're acquiring data, the key question to ask is not how are we going to acquire the data, is that what can they get after they provided the data. I don't believe in the fact that people will just give you the data by airdropping them. I don't believe that, because I have tried of the past like 5 years. I also run an incubator back then. We have over A plus unicorn companies coming out from 80 plus companies. There's one very important equation that we have is that if you're not making something that people perceive they can get more out of it, there's no way you can get a lot of data from them. Right. Credibility is one thing. The other thing is not just credibility. I think it's about like what do they provide it to you. So like you think about the ChatGPT case, the reasons why you're so willing to provide all the images to ChatGPT is not only because they are so powerful and everyone is using it, is because when you get the results, it's better than a doctor. The doctor give you 5 minutes, but you can chat for 5 hours with ChatGPT. And that's the things that ChatGPT have provided to you by giving them just just you uploading one image. So you can count the ROIs. It's much better in this case, and therefore you'll be willing to provide the data.
So following that, and I think all three of you mentioned this or touched on it, I don't want to give my data to anyone. So are you developing ways or looking into how to use ZK or homomorphic encryption to, I want to own my data, I'll sell it to you. You never get it. And I want it to be encrypted entirely once you get it.
Yeah, let me go through a process because I think one of the gentlemen asked a question as well. So we use TEE and some ZK. ZK is just difficult because we do need to know who you are to some extent, like because the data that you're providing to us needs to be used by scientists. It's not going to be used by us, by the way. Like we will be encrypted on your end. So only if you give us the key, only if you are allowing us to pass along your data to any scientist that want to request your data, that will be decrypted. So this is how we run our program. And yes, I do personally believe that your data should belong to you. What we are doing is renting the data from you. Yes, and that's a model that I believe. And if I got something out of that, I don't like the idea that like one company take all your data set and I make 100% out of the profit, then you got nothing. I don't like it. And therefore, in Avanasi Labs, one thing that I'm sure that we'll be doing is that you will get a piece of it. And the piece will depending on how much contribution you have, as well as how useful it is. There are some lucks that some people like rare diseases, I do think that this group of users should get a better incentives just because they have very special, unique data sets that, by the way, pharma wants it so much. And we knew it because I worked with them before. The idea is that oftentimes they're not being incentivized in a better way. It's not just about money, by the way. I'm going to stop there.
I think incentives is important, and I mean, John, so I did my PhD here on the data privacy issues, and one thing we might want to be careful, even though I'm incentivized to say opposite, but I'm going to say, like most people, I think here in our, let's say, DeSci bubble, we think people are starting to think from the privacy endpoint, but usually people are thinking more in terms of value. You'd be surprised how much people are willing to share if they see the value in their data. So there's a whole history of people sharing like all sorts of private information with ChatGPT. And that's good and bad. So the good part is that yes, people are willing to share their private information as long as they derive the value. And the bad part is that so far we haven't figured out good incentive models where we can actually make sure that people are in control and the companies who are providing the service are also benefiting from it. Usually it goes one way or the other. And I think it's not like there's a law of physics preventing that. It's just that we have to figure out better incentive models.
My question is for Fiona. Thank you so much. I think it was great. I think you're an extraordinary founder, and the fact that you're a woman makes it more amazing. I wanted to educate the audience a little bit and see if you can talk to us a little bit more on your tokenomics and how people is earning the token by using the product. I think it's extraordinary that you have 20,000 users. And you can tell us a little bit more how people is earning the token or where are you with the token? Is it on mainnet already and everything else? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very, yeah, I guess for decentralized science, we also have like the decentralized part, which is the tokenomics. For us, we haven't launched the token yet because actually out of the 20,000 users, 80% of them are like more Web2 based, but we have this reward credit mechanism already installed in the app. So it's kind of like training the traditional loyalty program, but at the same time, we are like evaluating the data value for like the continuous contribution as well. That actually matches the previous question about like the data contribution. Like in our business model, we actually don't license the data, so we don't collect the biometric data or like name, address, and stuff. We more like just collect the bioimagery without identifying who is who, but we collect their like contribution of what they are like how much alcohol they're drinking, if they're smoking, if they're sleeping well today, if they're like having like mental stable stability today. But with that day-to-day data contribution, that generates the value of the general data set as well. So the tokenomics is firstly rewarding the data contribution, and secondly, it's also rewarding the continuous data contribution. So like if you only tracked it today, and then your token might expire with, as you stopped using the app. But if you like continues to use and scan and contribute your like quiz data, as well as maybe you help even like distribute and refer to your friend to start using them, you can earn token. And then the token value backing would actually come from the proprietary model licensing, because with your data, we're actually using them to train our model that's already wanted by like pharma company and cosmetic company to integrate into their technical stack. So those API subscription and revenue income would be the value backing of the token. At the same time, more data, more efficient model and a more accurate model, higher API revenue, so higher token value backing as well. At the same time, we would have like marginal revenue from the API licensing that we can also buy back the token, as well as convert to stablecoin for maybe like company treasury, or just provide better rewards as well, if that answers your question.
One question here, referring to you discuss data use, data privacy, and I guess my question is, how are you guys factoring the consent, right, of the people giving data, and especially removing consent at a particular time, not only of the data, raw data that is being used, but also of the analysis that are being built on top of that data, right? For example, in pharma, if a patient removes consent, you basically need to remove all the trace of that particular data set used and all the analysis that were done regarding to that. How are you guys thinking about handling that? It's kind of like the major question. And then the second question is, data per se is not ownable. You own the use of the data, and legally in the US. How are you guys thinking about that?
That's a great question. I'll just answer quickly in our business case. So first of all, to comply the HIPAA and GDPR, we have this like privacy and term tick box, but nobody really gave a read. But I guess in today's usage of AI, people are like kind of used to their model being processed for further training. At the same time, if we, since we're like training the model based on the data input from the consumer, and then the model is kind of like giving semi-supervised annotation towards the image, we also need to run through the annotation every quarterly with doctors to double check the accuracy and deficiency, because like for example, because we're focusing on hair and scalp and like skin, like these annotation can be very racist if like the data set is not diverse enough. So that's something we're working on as well, and putting into the data privacy and terms as well. But I guess, yeah, in general, if we want the consumer to be more cautious or more like clear about what we're using the data, like I strongly recommend everybody start taking like reading the privacy and terms checkbox.
So I think what you're asking is a question which machine learning cannot solve. This problem is called forgetting. Like, how do you program forgetting in machine learning models? Turns out there are results showing it cannot be solved. So I think the solution has to be at the user interface and system layer. So one solution is that you control the models that have been used, and whenever someone wants to opt out, you use a different model that does not include that specific subset of the data coming from the user. Specifically in my company's case, all the models are in-house, so we are not giving, let's say, data or model to pharma so far. So it has not been a problem, but yeah, once data goes out and you want to control its trajectory, it's almost impossible.
Thank you. We have time for maybe one last question. Okay, the mic to you.
I have a very easy question. So Fiona, I was wondering, is this also, because I know males have hair loss issues, so is this also targeted towards males or in the future? Would you do that?
Yeah, definitely. So what we see from our current user base is that the male user base is growing, but because like our initial go-to-market strategy was just collaborating with hair care influencer, whose like major follower base is like female, or like the early adapter group is mostly female, as like generally female is more willing to invest for their appearance and aesthetic care. So long-term, it's kind of like hims and hers. So hims and hers, they started with hims, but for us, we want to start with hers.
Awesome. So that's a short question, so I'll have another one.
So are DeSci protocols using traditional Web 2 infrastructure like AWS, or do you see DeSci using Web 3 protocols for AI compute, AI-centric chains like BitTensor, or Web 3 data storage? Is that a big thing for you guys now, or?
So for us, right now, it's more or less everything is Web 2 with some Web 3 ethos. So we are not using any ZKP training and all those things, but we do things like on-device training, for example. So actually, when we are training models, data is not leaving your device at all. So you don't even have to worry about using advanced security models because it's literally happening on device. My opinion generally is that these things have to be somewhat like in tiers. So first you want to deliver some value and then upgrade the stack, and then deliver value and then upgrade the stack. If you go too extreme with the whole Web3 infrastructure, then it becomes a little tricky. Okay, are we facing problem on the infrastructure side, or are we facing problem on delivering the value?
I agree. We're testing a few right now. In fact, we just had a conversation with Zero-G on data storage and also computing. They're still in testnet. So the question is going back to like what kind of value you can add on to the first group of users first. I think that's the important questions for us to ask, to answer as a startup, and that's something that we're focusing on. It's like, yes, we are in Web3, blah, yada, yada, but look, we don't want your data to be stolen. So we need to be very cautious about what we're doing. So right now, to answer your question, mostly still Web 2. Also based on where, like, I mean, in the future, we do want to migrate to Web3, depending on their stability and also scalability.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and let's give applause to our wonderful speakers.